Great stuff.
Fabulous.
The lively sound of Andy Shepherd's saxophone there, demonstrating the virtuosity which won him honours in a national jazz competition. More later from the man whose circular breathing leaves audiences breathless.
Also tonight, life through the viewfinder of Linda McCartney, who began her career photographing pop stars and then clicked with Paul. Today her work embraces romanticism and realism, and her current exhibition can be seen at the Royal Photographic Society in Bath.
I mean, anybody could take pictures, even if it's just of the family or a flower arrangement or anything that inspires you.
So how important are things like composition and framing when you're actually making that image?
I think very important. I always believe in what they call cropping in the lens. In other words, a lot of people take photographs, and then once they get the photograph, they think, well, I want to go in on that, so they crop it. But I believe in doing that before you get the picture.
You've been taking photographs for about 20 years. How has your work changed in that time?
It hasn't changed that much. I think I'm growing as a photographer, but the subjects are not that different. I love faces with character, and I love life itself, landscapes and trees and flowers. I'm very corny with what I like.
A lot of the images to me seem a little romanticized, rather idealized. Do you think what you're doing is trying to hang on to something by taking the photograph?
No, I think I do have a problem with romanticizing. I know I could be taking pictures of the poverty in Glasgow, and somehow the faces look wonderful. You know, they look vibrant rather than down. But I mean, the one thing I'd like to do, which I won't romanticize, is the slaughtering of animals, which I'm very against that. I think animals need a little attention now.
And do you think that photography for you will become more and more to do with that, to do with putting a message across rather than just recording perhaps a very special moment?
Well, I think I'm putting a message across anyway. I'm trying to say to people, you really should appreciate life because it's not here forever. And I mean, here we are in Bath, some of the most beautiful buildings. When you think all over Britain and all over the world, people without thinking have knocked great buildings down already. And they're gone, you know, because we don't make bricks or decoration or tiles like we used to. So I'm trying to say, look at it, but remember it won't be here forever unless you make it here.
Linda's work is a fusion of the old and the new. Increasingly, she returns to the past for inspiration, particularly in terms of technique.
Well, I was inspired when I started photography with some of the old prints. And I've been trying for years to find out the different techniques. And I came upon this technique, which is, the nice thing is it involves minerals like silver or tin or whatever, and the sun. Or not so much the sun as the sky. In other words, you don't need a darkroom. You take handmade paper and you put your solutions and you do everything. And then you put the negative with the paper and you expose it to light, natural light. And then all of a sudden the picture comes out.
Another technique that you've been using recently is hand tinting, isn't it? How did you get into that?
It's again to do with the old-fashioned way. You know, we talk about progress. To me, is regress. Really, I think we've progressed to the point where we could destroy the world, and that's about it. I like the old way of printing, and tinting, before they had color, was an old-fashioned way. I love the effect of black and white because you can take a black and white print, even just tint little areas of it. And it's just something I like doing from, you know, the past.
do you tint them?
Well, two ways. One, I do it myself, and another way, I have a friend who is a fabulous tinter, and he airbrushes. I mean, he's a true artist, and he's not the type who would just tint anything. He just does what he likes, and he loved these CPRE things that I did, with, conservation of rural England, and so he took some of them and just started working on it. We're a good pair.
And do you think that the hand tinting and the sun process and the conservation and the interest that you have in that go hand in hand, and will they continue to do so?
Absolutely. Oh, I think I'll just take it further and further. I'd like to get into platinum printing. It's all to do with minerals, you see. These days, again, I said progress. Well, I think there's so many photographers now that the film companies and the people who make paper are taking most of the minerals out. Instead of putting more into it, they're taking the quality out, which means you have to go elsewhere to do what you want to do. There's a local Bath man named Michael Gray, who I've just met, who's supposed to be a fabulous printer into printing. I hope to link up with him. And it's fun. It's like the old days, People get together and create. I was an art history major, and one of my favorite subjects was surrealism.
What about the portraits? There are a number of portraits of a number of different kinds in the exhibition. Do you find that you actually try to pose a sitter, and a lot of them are less snapshotty than some of the other work?
Recently, I do more posing than I used to. I mean, I used to take photographs for a living, and they were very candid. I took a lot of musicians and artists and so on. But now that I don't do it for a living, I have more time to just sit and study people. I do both, though. I mean, it really depends on the moment, whether I pose or it's a quick snap, as they say.
And do you think that by posing some of it, and there's some, for example, there are some photographs of mine workers or colliers, and
those aren't posed.
Are they not? They look strangely posed.
No, I'm telling you the truth. Those are fleeting moments in my life. The four men against the wall are up in Scotland, and every day, I'm sure they're deceased now. I mean, I took that one a while back. Every day those four men would be there talking and sitting. They'd sit on a bench and talk. And one day they were standing against the wall, so I just went, hello, and they all looked at me, and I took a picture. And the distillery workers were just coming out from work, and they were all there, and they saw me, and they just smiled. So it was all totally non-posed.
So in fact, there is a strange irony there that some of the photographs look very posed, but are in fact those moments.
I think probably they're about 2% posed pictures. And if they're even the posed ones have great warmth to them because they're always fun. It's always fun taking pictures.
Like the portrait of the Alexander teacher over there, which I think has a very particular quality. How did you get that? How did you put that picture together?
Well, I started the Alexander technique, really, because I had aching in my back, and somebody said you ought to do Alexander. So it took me about 2 years to find the teacher I wanted, who is a Dr. Barlow. And that photograph is of his wife, who is Alexander's niece, who is a teacher as well, a wonderful teacher. And when I saw her face, I thought I must photograph her. So I was doing a video with her husband, doing the technique. And I asked her if she'd come out so I could take a picture of her. And I was photographing her face. But all of a sudden I thought, well, I've got these death hands of Alexander, would you believe, that she had. And she had a picture of Alexander. And then you see the man there is before. He came to her with very bad headaches. And in about 3 months, you can see the tension going from his body. So I put it all together, and that to me is the Alexander technique.
I'm telling you, that coal man, he will have been woken up this morning.
Inevitably, as a photographer, Linda McCartney has to field questions about the effect on her career of husband Paul, who does his best to take a back seat when it comes to previews. Most people would think the McCartney name an asset, but there are times when it might be counterproductive.
I think what the media, I think the name is attractive. I don't think I'd be doing an interview with you probably if I wasn't married to Paul. Maybe I would because of the photographs. But I think all it's done is made people criticize, and you carry on being in school when that happens. You know, once you leave school, you're free, but I can handle it.
Has it made you more conscious of the work that you produce, that it's going to be looked at with that critical eye?
No, I'm not really interested in critics. I'm interested in people. I'd like people only to enjoy this exhibition, you know, not intellectualize it, really.
Well, Sarah, I think the key question to ask is, would it all have happened if it hadn't been for that famous name?
Well, to be honest, I don't think it would, Derek. But I don't think one should blame Linda for it.
No.
After all, it's not Linda McCartney capitalising on the McCartney name, it's the gallery making publicity out of it.
Given all that, was the show presented as well as it might have been?
I think it could have done with a lot of editing. There were a few very good pictures in there that were lost in a sea of rather ordinary and rather mediocre work, to be honest.
We'll leave it at that. Thanks, Sarah. Next.
Motorists who regularly use the M4 are used to traffic jams, statement of fact. Though jams caused by drivers slowing down to look at a floral arrangement in recent days are something rather new. The flowers were a publicity stunt by Linda McCartney to publicise her new exhibition at the Royal Photographic Society in Bath. The exhibition opens on Saturday. Ruth Jackson's been along to meet Linda as she prepares for her big day.
If people have asked me what do you think about your photographs being in the Royal Photographic Society? And it is an honor, definitely, because it's such a wonderful old institute. And photography is what I do, and I love it. I mean, people also say to me, well, maybe if you weren't married to Paul McCartney, you wouldn't have photographs. I would definitely have photographs here. I would definitely be a photographer. Maybe the media wouldn't have been so attractive to me. But as a photographer, I know I'd be doing very well anyway. I mean, I know very little about the mechanics of photography. I know the camera isn't what matters. It's if you have a box and a very good lens, and you know when to click, and you think, well, the light's that or that, you get a picture. I like black and white film. I like the drama. I like the imagination it makes you use. You know, you look at a landscape in black and white, you imagine what the color would be, but you don't think, oh, I'm missing something, there's no color. But I'm basically a black and white photographer. I never liked color because it never seemed as good as color of life. But this Cibachrome printing makes red, really red. So I've been using large format color, and I love it. I'm very interested in printing of photographs the old-fashioned way. What I've been doing is taking handmade paper and doing different minerals and water, and it's more complicated than this. Then you put it in a press and expose it to the light, and therefore the minerals react to the light, and your photo comes out. And you don't need a darkroom, you don't need an enlarger, you don't need chemicals. It's nice. I think one thing I do well as a photographer is I can capture a moment. I can click before the event goes by. I think even with people, in fact, there was an actor once, Warren Beatty, who said he could hear when I was clicking when I was taking pictures of him. And he said, it's funny, you clicked every time at the right time. So I think I capture the feeling of life quickly because I'm not worried about the mechanics, I guess.
About this exhibition?
I'm excited, and I'm not nervous critically at all. It really doesn't matter to me. But I like the fact that it's being hung. Such a wonderful place. I'll get to walk around and look at my photographs, really. And that regular people will get to see them. But if you mean, am I going to run to the newspapers? No, I don't get newspapers. No.
And guess which newspaper lowered the tone by saying that she'd actually dropped her bloomers beside the M4.